we're doing better as a result of social media presence.
If it doesn't do those three things, then it's on the chopping block.
It's a return on investment discussion.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Daily Dealer Live. I'm your host, Sam Darkin. Joining me today is the Yuli DiMartino. Yuli, welcome to the show.
What's up?
Yuli, our astute audience out there, the Daily Dealer crowd is going to see I'm in a completely different place. Guess where I am? I'm at a Holiday Inn. I don't even know where I am. I'm from somewhere to somewhere in the middle of somewhere. We lost power at our corporate offices earlier today. We ended up doing a GM top sales best practice session with all of our salespeople, and we had to pivot. And I'll tell you what, Yuli, you and I talk about this all the time in automotive. There's nobody better than automotive at pivoting. Like, I don't care if it's CDK outage. I don't care if the internet goes out, the power goes out, whatever. Yeah. And we're doing that today, Yuli. We're pivoting. And I'm in a goddamn hotel. So I love this.
I love it.
Anyway, for all of our social media folks out there, we're live streaming across all CDG social media platforms. Post your comments, all of them. We'll bring them into today's show. And Yuli, guess what we've got coming up today? New Roads Mazda profitability hacks and Koons CEO on the massive Ford incentives. We've talked about that. President Trump launched the employee pricing for all at the beginning of the tariff talk. And Ford has dug deeper into that. So we're excited to have that conversation. But first, let's dive into today's headlines, shall we?
Let's do it.
And you're gonna see me look over here because I've got different screens today. We're adapting. All right. First up today, used vehicle sales dipped 1.5% in June to 1.46 million units, but sales volume remains 2.4% higher than last year, a sign that used demand is holding up even as the market moves past spring's peak per Cox Auto. Inventory levels held steady at 2.21 million units with 45 days supply, while average listing prices edged up slightly at $25,512, now 1% above last year. Certified pre-owned sales dropped 13.1% month over month, but the decline was influenced by fewer selling days in June, not just weaker demand. But the real supply squeeze is at the bottom of the market. Check this out. Vehicles under 15,000 now have just 32 days supply. And guess why? Because there aren't that many vehicles at 15,000 or lower, well below the industry average, leaving budget-conscious buyers with fewer options. What's the bottom line here? Well, as tariffs drive cost pressures mount, more buyers are shifting to used vehicles to stretch those budgets. Next up today, automakers are pulling back on EV production plans as demand sputters and regulatory tailwinds fade. Honda canceled its electric SUV. Nissan delayed 2 EV crossovers. Ford scrapped its 3-row EV, and even luxury brands like Lotus and Ferrari are rethinking timelines, shifting focus to hybrids or delaying models till at least 2028. The industry-wide pivot comes amid a sharp deceleration in EV growth. U.S. EV sales climbed just 10% in 2024 after rising 40% the year before. Bloomberg NEF now expects 14 million fewer EV sales through 2030 than it had originally forecast. And recent Trump administration policies like eliminating the $7,500 federal EV tax credit and blocking California's gas car ban have only added to the uncertainty, reinforcing the argument that EV adoption should follow consumer demand, not the government mandates. Analysts say the next phase of EV growth will depend on more than just price or tax breaks. Changing charging infrastructure, consumer education, and connected services like OTA updates and subscription will all play a growing role in defining success. As Cox Auto's Stephanie Valdez Streety put it, quote, "The training wheels are coming off. The EV market now has to stand on its own." Interesting as we think about what lies ahead in EV. And then finally up today, BMW CEO Oliver Zipse had hoped the U.S. and EU could strike a deal on tariffs. But just one day later, President Trump sent a formal letter notifying EU leaders of a 30% tariff on imported goods, including autos. this effective August 1st. The EU had been working behind the scenes to avoid the tariff, but Trump doubled down, warning that any retaliation from Europe or Mexico would trigger additional charges on top of the 30%. Trump's message to the EU is to build in America or pay the price. In his letter, he called the EU's trade practices, quote, far from reciprocal, and said U.S. trade deficits had been ignored for far too long. The move throws BMW export strategy into question. The company is the top auto exporter from the U.S., shipping 225,000 vehicles worth over $10 billion last year. Zipsy had hinted that strong U.S. exports might help offset any new tariff burden. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen warned that tariffs could, quote, disrupt essential transatlantic supply chains, creating major headaches for companies and consumers on both sides of the Atlantic. So just when you thought like the whole tariff thing was completely settled, there was nothing left to be said. We're back at it, even with EU, right? So it's crazy. And guess what? The biggest news this day is, Yuli.
What?
CDG just released something. What did CDG just release?
Oh, I heard whispers of that. The new website. What is it?
Yeah, give it to me. Tell me about it. What do we know about this thing? This is the coolest thing yet. You got to go check it out, and I'm going to bring it up here. It is
brand new buy-sell tracker.
Yeah, the buy-sell M&A tracker. We want to be the place at CDG, Yossi, the entire CDG team, where every buy-sell gets reported out. So go to that tracker. You can see it across all the social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere. And that is where all the new announcements for M&A will reside. And we'll announce as many of them here on the show as we possibly can live. But turn to those every time you're looking for updates.
That's cdgbuysell.com. The letter CDG, buysell.com.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, heck, let's turn to our first guest. Let's go to General Manager of New Roads Mazda, Curtis Biggs. Curtis, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Curtis, welcome. Long time no see.
We all made it.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Like we always did.
We all made it.
Yeah.
Curtis, before Yuli takes us home with this, let's start with our signature question. How's biz today, this July 2025 in your world, Curtis?
Biz has been good. We're actually just reviewing our numbers for July, and we're ahead of last year. And, seeing the data coming in about used cars somewhat being a little behind in June, but we continue to see pretty robust market up in Canada. In the pre-owned section, the new is, at least for this location at this store, we're tracking to have a record year. So things are looking good. Things are looking pretty good.
We'd love to hear that.
Yeah, no, we actually had such a great week last week there. I told my managers that maybe we don't need to tell people it's July.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So you touched briefly on June. How was June overall?
Good. It was a good month. We kind of felt the same with the used. It was slightly behind, but it was ahead of last year. The profitability overall was great. The new interest has continued to be strong, and it was another great used new car month. But the surprise this year has been fixed. We've had an amazing year in fixed. After a record year last year, we continue to set new records every month, and June was no different. It was a record month for the fixed operation.
So the last time you were on the show, you had some pretty dramatic figures to share with us, right? Your net to sale was floating at?
Just shy of 6.
Just shy of 6, which is staggering, right, in this business. And it's great and refreshing to hear that you had a great June and a great July, because overall, I think we hear nationwide, June was soft for most, with some lifts in some areas. So being that you're so profitable and you're able to keep your eye on the prize, right, which is that bottom line result, what are some of the key levers that you're leaning into, or rather, what can you share with us that we can dive deeper into on today's show?
Well, so I think we've talked about this in past too. When you're building any business, I think it's easier, or the effort is required, which is a little less effort to get your growth. It's much harder to sustain that growth. And I think we're at that point where we've had great years building to where we are. Now it's all about staying laser focused on some of the key areas. So, if we were to departmentalize this in the fixed side, it's more about ensuring that those bays are full, ensuring that the work coming in is quality. So we're doing a lot of different marketing ideas. We're doing, secret shopping our competitions. We have these co-op students that come in, and we use them to meet, to go and secret shop some of our mainstream competitors, as well as some of the non-franchise service base, just to understand what's happening and why we're losing some people, the ones that we are, and find ways to bring those back. In Canada, there continues to be robust growth in housing. So we've got a lot of new developments, and we actively are in those neighborhoods, asking those people to come in, running draws in those neighborhoods, giving them a chance to come visit us, just to get to see what the business is like at this location. And when that business does come in, we're doing everything we possibly can to make these customers feel valued, because they have choices. They can't take it anywhere. We need them to realize the difference in coming to us. So we're building value in every touch point. And then we're really dialing in on some of the basics, right? We know people, hospitality is huge. So that's been a huge part. But one thing that's been huge for us, really big, has been videos. Our service team has really, really rallied the idea of videos. And at this point, majority of the communication is done via video from advisor, technicians, and it's been really well received.
So when did you implement the video MPIs?
That was last year.
Okay.
And it became, initially we rolled it out as some contests, a bit of specs behind, just to get people into it. And over the years, over the last later half of the year, it really took on. Entire season, it was in full steam. And now we've gotten to a point where we have guys that are competing on video quality. So we call some of these guys now the Hollywood of our shop, because they're all now trying to find ways to make videos more entertaining and just kind of ante up their quality of production. It's been fun to watch them, because they've made this now their initiative, and it's been beautiful to see it go.
Well, that is impressive, because in all my years, you get people to stand behind the video MPI, but I've never had them really take it like that, to that extent, where they're gonna make it a game. And I've never had the pleasure of Hollywoodizing any of my technicians. That's awesome. So you said the obvious go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it is so fascinating how much the same the business automotive is in Canada, right? You're in Canada, you're focusing on a lot of things that we here south of your border focus on to achieve excellence in business, video MPIs, and focusing on other things. You're getting a great net to gross. What is something that you'd love your American brothers and sisters in automotive to know that sets doing business as a franchised auto dealer in Canada versus the United States? What are some of the biggest differentiators or biggest things that maybe folks in the U.S. don't understand?
Well, I think the business as a whole is quite similar. The market plays to our favor in some cases when it comes to seasonality in certain areas. Certain parts of Canada, for example, tires are mandatory to be winter tires in certain parts of the year. So,
it's a good service business, Curtis.
It's a great service business, right? And storage. So in Canada, if you notice, most of the population is all concentrated in the central hubs. We don't really have these large pockets when you leave the Toronto or the great metropolitan areas. It allows us to have some businesses that I don't think some of our dealers down south have, which is storage. Storage is a big business for most of us. We store, 1,000 set of tires, which is a lot of people. And there are guys that store way more than us. So I think there's some of those differences that play into factor of some of the fixed growth. But I think overall business as a whole is somewhat, pretty much similar. But, of course, the demographics and the market dynamics play factor into it.
All right. So as a follow-up question, Yuli, I've got to ask this, and I don't know how to ask this without turning it political, but I have to ask because I think it's on most people's minds. So without getting crazy political, tariffs are a big deal here in the U.S. right now. It's leading the news, as you saw in the read in the very beginning. What do dealers in Canada make of this tariff craziness? And like, is it a positive? Is it a negative? Is it kind of understood? Are you looking south of the border going, what on earth are you guys doing? Like, what's your take on this?
Sam, that's a great question. When the tariffs were announced way back in April onwards, it created a bit of panic, and I think it created it throughout South as well as up north here with us. Dealers have that, our consumers have that, and we pulled some of their later business early in the year because people came in frantically, wanted to buy. I think, but now, over the last 60 days, it's settled. People have come to an acceptance. This is what business is going to look like. And there's going to be tariffs. There's going to be costs that are going to go up. We have spent a lot of time talking to our staff, more importantly, to say, we're going to focus on what we control. Tariffs could be on, tariffs could be off. They could be 30%, 25, 50%. The fact remains, people are going to need cars. People are going to need to service their cars. We just need to make sure we don't control the price. What we do control is the experience. Let's ensure and we focus on the experience and make it as great as we possibly can. And let's discuss with consumers that we understand things are going to be expensive, but we're going to at least do our best to make it as worthwhile as possible. And I think it hasn't been as disruptive in the last 60 days as it was initially. And now it's just business as usual.
That's awesome. That's very similar to how we've approached it. And, I would say on behalf of all the North American dealers, I don't know what like the sentiment, like if there's like negativity, if it creates a little bit of a disconnect, a little hard feelings or whatever. We love dealers in Canada. We love everybody up in Canada. So politics aside and all the things that are going out on there that you say and you recognize we can't control, we just have nothing but respect. And my gosh, your net is incredible. So we're excited to learn more about that. So I just wanted to say that, Yuli. I had to get that in there. I was fascinated when I found out you were in Canada. So.
Oh, and to your point, back to the net, right? So the obvious thing when you're talking about fixed ops is keeping the base full, right?
Absolutely.
What's something less obvious? Because I think the elephant in the room is, for the people that saw you last time, your structure is completely different on the sales side. How is your structure on the fixed side? Why don't you talk us through your staffing, your pay plans and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a very traditional pay plan structure. Of course, technology plays a big factor into it. So, we've got 2 advisors. One thing we did, and so as we talk about things that play into net, we know the gross profitability is important, which comes from your bays, your tech productivity, getting hours out of those bays and keeping those bays full. The opposite side of that equation is the expense and keeping really tight control on expense. And, when you're in this growth mindset and you're growing and you're expanding and you're getting more results, very quickly you can also bloat and get really fat. And you start to add things that you don't need. So we've created a quarterly management meeting where we deep dive and dissect all expenses to ensure we have nothing that we don't need. Because before you know it, these little subscriptions that you have for $1,000 a month here and there, they add up. And at the end of the year, we've got hundreds of thousands of dollars of stuff that you probably don't need or barely utilize. And every time I have sat in these meetings with my management, we've always found something to cut, something to pull back on that we just do not need. So that has been a huge takeaway for my management team, because they always now come to table with looking at areas that we don't need to spend in, and there are areas that we can do better with or get more efficiency out of, yet based on what we're paying. So that has been huge. I think you asked about how the compensation as such has worked. So of course we do the good old instructors of ours at NADA taught us a lot of great things. So we took some of that and brought back productivity, the shop productivity, the bay productivity as KPIs for our technicians. We've gamified most of the productivity. There's a massive board in the back. And with each level of productivity, there's little bonuses that they can attain. So this way, they're all looking at their productivity any day in and day out. And everyone is competing to beat their numbers. Because if you reach a certain threshold, we want everyone to be a winner. So we don't want to just go ahead and treat the tech who always produces 20 hours. We want to produce the guy who's been stuck at 8. And if he can get to 14, we want him to feel the same way. So we've created bonuses that are tiered to each one of them based on their production. So if someone's producing 100 and they hit 140% efficiency, well, they can get an X amount of bonus. So we've created some gamified ways for them to have more fun and share openly their performances, which is something I think most of us have done in sales side for a long time. But we probably don't do it as openly in our technician side because of whatever the reason might be. For us, it was, well, the guys are not going to want to share what they produce because they might create negative competition. It didn't. They loved it. They embraced it, and now they challenge each other, and it's fun to watch because they're pushing each other to produce more hours. So a lot of those things have played into a pretty strong performance out of this team, and just proud to be part of it.
That's awesome. And I got to ask, as far as the variable side, I can't help. There's this burning little question in the back of my head. The fact that you're able to stay so consistent, and your model is very unique in the automotive world, from your staffing, and in every department. Do you think that you're able to stay more consistent because of how your structure is?
I definitely think it plays a part into that, Yuli. It really does. Traditionally, variable department has always had the peaks and valleys. You have a great month, lots of volume, great growth. You make a whole lot of net profit, and then you dip down into slower months, and suddenly it erodes or it vanishes the profitability. What we've been able to now do in our variable side is what I love the most is we have now what is considered fairly fixed expense. So we know if we make this much from here onwards, everything's going to drop to net. So the goal now is there's no such thing. Well, what is the expense going to look like this month? We know what we're expected to make in gross profitability. More importantly, what is each department going to cost us when it comes to personnel expense? And it's usually few percentages apart from each other based on, of course, the overall performance and the output of the department. But that fixed control has really helped us maintain stability in overall performance from the variable side.
But you're not stopping, nor are you slowing down. I mean, you're saying you're going to have a record year, or you're on pace to having a record year, and you're not stocked with salespeople, correct?
Correct.
Why don't you expand a little more for people that missed the last time? And I know Sam wants to pressure test this. You have exceptional retention with your personnel on the sales side as well, which is, a lot of the things that you're doing up there, Curtis, they're very rare.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Julie. Gen Z is a topic of discussion, I think, in a lot of businesses. Some good and some people challenging, saying, the work ethic's not the same, or their outlook is not the same as maybe millennials or boomers. For me, it's been a little different. I think Gen Zs, at least the ones that are working for me in my variable team, which there's quite a few, the work ethic is definitely different, but I think they want to feel more important. They want to be part of a bigger puzzle more than just work for themselves. At least that's what I have observed. And our focus have all been about, well, how can we make each person feel integral in the grand scheme of things for the variable operation? So, this importance, they know that they play a big part in the success of the team, but it's how we tie them into it is what makes it exciting. So when we have new initiatives where we want to start to bring in a new product, there's a new vendor that we like, and we want to bring this product and talk to our consumers about it. We talk to these guys and say, what do you think? How do you think this will benefit? And how do you think this will make you feel comfortable in making this transaction with your client? Do you feel that? Can you stand behind this product? And it becomes their idea. They come to the table with things that they think they can sell it on, or the values they can see, or the challenges they might also face. It ends up becoming a discussion where now they are fundamentally part of decision making instead of just being told you need to sell this, or you need to push this product. So these small things make a big difference in their involvement in overall the model.
Curtis, what a great strategy, what a great leadership strategy and go-to-market strategy. Is there an initiative or a product that you've brought to the team and they've said, you know what, we really don't like it? Maybe they either turned their way to see it as a positive, or they just voted it down, and as a result, you didn't end up going down a road that otherwise might have been chaos.
Yes, there is. So, in the world of pre-owned, there is lots of service contracts you can sell. We are a certain store that carries Tricor is our primary provider. But when you're selling used cars, there are some cars that just don't fit the bill. You need to have a third-party provider. And we've had some of them come pitch us their products, and we've had these products now then shared with our front-end team members. And there were two vendors that our staff was very much adamant against. They were like, no, we do not want them on. And they had reasons why. And what makes it easier for us, Sam, is they end up doing all the research that usually my managers would do. They'll come back to the table and say, well, we read this article and this on Reddit and this on this forum. I don't think we won this.
And honestly, Curtis, I think it makes vendors try harder to connect with everybody on your team and to truly do their job, which is they're not just trying to sell you at the very top and then assuming that you're going to be dictatorial the whole path down. they need to do their job all the way around. We've got a great question from BMW guy, question for Curtis, and this will be the last one before we leave, Curtis. We've loved this conversation. Question for Curtis: what do you as your biggest challenge for the rest of the year, and is the same as what it was at the start of the year? So is your biggest challenge for the rest of the year the same as it was in the beginning, Curtis? We'll end on that.
Great question. Well, I'll tell you this. This market, as we talked about, Sam, you had to face some adversity today.
Yes.
No 2 days are alike in our industry. Really hard to tell how the next 6 months will look. I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
January 1st this year, when we got together, the outlook was, well, let's hope this year is going to be as good as last. But there was a lot of uncertainty. And I have to say, looking back in the first 6 months, it has been nothing but great. What we do is, we look at every day and every next day as a day that we need to focus on and not worry too far out what the next 3 or 6 months will look. Our goal is today. Let's maximize today. Let's focus on today. Let's control today, because unfortunately, with everything happening around us, there is just way too much uncertainty to predict 30 and 60 days out. But we do know what's in front of us. We know the product we have, the consumer that's here, the lead that's on your desk. Let's work those to the max we can. And we're going to be okay. Come December, the end result will be pretty good.
And with that, Curtis Biggs, we appreciate you being on the show. General Manager, New Roads, Mazda. We appreciate your perspective from north of the border. Sorry for making such a big deal about that, but I think so many of our dealers here in the U.S. are just so fascinated by what is going on ex-U.S., outside these United States. And we just appreciate all you're doing. And thanks for the best practices you shared with us today. To your 6 points net to gross. That's a big takeaway as well. Curtis Biggs, New Roads Mazda. Thanks for joining the show.
Guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Curtis.
Okay.
All right, Yuli, we don't have time to actually share this, but Chance Mayfield said, I think the most obvious question on this beautiful Monday is, what did Sam and Yuli think of the new Superman movie? So I'm going to admit, I haven't seen Superman. I haven't seen F1. I don't even remember the last time I've seen a movie. So Chance, buy us a ticket, take us to the show. I know I got invited by Alex to go see the EV guy to go see it, and I just didn't get the chance. But and then your BMW guy came back and said, thanks. And then Bill Vaughn, quit worrying about generations and bias. We say, work the customer. We need to treat our staff the same. Work the person you have in front of you, regardless of the generation. And I do agree with that. All right.
The one you're with.
That's right. Let's turn to the industry pulse up next. All right, for this industry pulse, we turn to a post by Zach Hendrick, who lists himself as bridging gaps in automotive. So I'm just going to walk us through this briefly. Zach opines on the shortcomings of marketing communications and dreams of a smarter future where AI is simplifying the drip of comms and delivering relevant updates when consumers are actually in the moment of the purchase decision. And he actually makes the point that sometimes in marketing moments, we get blasted with notes, basically asking us to become a promoter at odd times of products. He uses toothpaste as the example. When the floodgates open, thanks for your order, rate your toothpaste. Our customers love brushing. Don't miss our whitening sale. Don't forget the monthly digest email, because once I bought your toothpaste, I'm no quitter. I'm a raving cult participant now. And he talks about unsubscribing or unfollowing certain campaigns can sometimes be as tough as getting out of Scientology. You can hear the folks cleaning the floor here in the hotel behind me. This is live at its best. What do you think, Yuli? Does it need to be easier in an AI-driven world to opt out of campaigns? And should campaigns be more specifically targeted to the individual in that moment of purchase rather than just pushing you all the time to buy?
Two things came to mind. The first thing that came to mind was the limited edition seasonal toothpaste flavor that would also be marketed to you, without a doubt. And second, I think about this makes me think about the surveys that the OEMs want, right? Which are important. We need to know how our customers were treated. But the cadence in which they survey and the depth to which they survey, I think is wrong. Because if I'm a customer who just spent hours getting a vehicle, right, I might be flying high. I could be super happy. But if now I need to dedicate 15, 30 minutes to do a deep dive into a survey, I'm not going to be forthright with that. We need to make things easier. We have, people in a boardroom that have never sold a tube of toothpaste personally or sold a vehicle in our instance. that are making these decisions to do these deep dives with their customers. And I think it misses the mark a lot of the time. We need to make it easier to communicate and gather data from the customers and just not overly saturate, because then you end up unsubscribing and you don't buy the toothpaste.
So that's an interesting point. So in the world of oversaturation, who should be the ultimate connector between the brand and the customer? Should it be the OEM that's obviously doing their own, the dealer, or that third-party listing site, or should there be some sort of symbiotic combined relationship between all three that targets that customer?
I guess ideally there's a symbiotic relationship, but it's going to be the dealer that's going to have the customer's best interest at heart. I think the dealer understands that specific customer, whereas the OEM is, marketing on a broader level. They may know what you're driving and they're sending, hey, there's 0% this month on select vehicles. But I always question, how effective is that on the broader scale? Again, to oversaturate and send these emails just for the sake of sending the emails, I don't think really hits the mark. I don't know who it's benefiting.
So it's interesting, bringing up that point, OEM, dealer, third party. It harkens me back to our conversation Friday and even earlier last week, where we talked about the OEM relationship with dealers. And we also talked about brokers. So direct to consumer models like Tesla, Scout, and others. We also talked about the role of brokers. It was some of the most engaged content we've had on the show. And we got so much feedback, Yuli. I think it'd be great to do in a future episode a roundtable where we got several people with passionate perspectives, one way or another, a broker, maybe an OEM, and a dealer, and really have this conversation. Who drives the most value and at what step? Someone that can advocate for that direct to consumer piece, that dealer piece. I'm obviously biased because I'm part of the franchise dealer system. Love it. Want it to succeed and win long term. And then also the broker. So if you're interested in doing that, follow the link in the show notes. If you're listening to the podcast, post on social if you want to be part of this, and we will bring you into that conversation. Watch out for that coming up in a future episode. So, all right, Yuli, today's episode of Daily Dealer Live is brought to you by, guess who it's brought to you by? Mia. Meet Mia, your 24/7 AI receptionist who speaks like a human, not a robot. No more press one, just natural conversations for sales, service, and support. Mia handles everything from car shopping to appointment scheduling to in multiple languages while integrating with your systems. Never miss another lead. Visit mia.inc or click the link in the show notes below. And obviously, if you're watching on your desktop, you can scan the QR code with your phone. And as I always say, because this is my favorite comment, if you're smart enough to know how to scan the QR code as you're watching the show live, it'll also take you there as well. So we appreciate Mia for supporting the show and a lot of content, including the conversations that we're having today. So, all right, I like the bell, the bing. That's fun. All right, let's go to our final guest for today, CEO of Koons Motor Inc., Alex Perdikis. Welcome back to the show, Alex.
Thank you for having me again.
Welcome, Alex.
I appreciate it.
Alex, we appreciate having you here. So before we dive into our topics today, how the heck is business this July 14th of 2025?
It's excellent. July's out to a great start. I think we had a great June, especially specifically in Ford, and I think July is actually out to outpace that pretty significantly at this point in time. We're up. Our traffic is up through the weekend about 50%. So seeing the results, really strong.
So what do you attribute that increase in traffic? That's a strong increase in floor traffic, 50%.
Well, I think you've got, so I'm going back to the beginning of July. So we had obviously the Ford employee program that ended on right after the 4th of July weekend. And then as soon as that ended, we already had a pretty significant rush of traffic, through June into that first week of July. Everyone's taking advantage of the pricing. And then we transitioned to the 000 program that Ford's offering now. So I think it's just a combination of things, kind of the perfect storm. And we're seeing it pretty much across the board. Used car traffic is very strong. Ford traffic is excellent. Lincoln traffic is strong. Import traffic's a little flat, but we're talking Ford today. So
Alex, what would you describe for us, first of all, what the new promotion is with Ford? So employee pricing for all, it was famously retweeted by Trump at the beginning of the tariff, and it created a lot of excitement. Other OEMs tried to follow. We saw a bump. What's the new program?
So the new program it's 000. So it's 0% financing for 48 months, zero money out of pocket, and zero payment for 90 days. So 000. And I think one of the things that was great about the Ford Employee Program is it was just a straightforward price, very easy to market, very easy for the employees to work, and for all of us to understand, and for the customer to understand, because it was exactly what we call in the Ford world a plan. So it was exactly the Ford factory finance or Ford factory employee pricing that you would get. Like I said before on the show, whether you were a 30-year employee or a customer that just walked in, you got the same price that Ford would offer to the employees. So with that said, a lot of the incentive went towards that pricing. And so when it came to financing and it came to the actual monthly outlay, which is really, over 80% of our clients finance, that in some cases didn't translate as well. So, and then Ford noticed that, we're not getting as much through Ford Credit. So the opportunity cost of offering the employee pricing for financing was a little bit of a concern. So we saw it early on, and we thought, look, let's look at these lease payments, let's look at these financing, and communicated with Ford about it, and they agreed. And what's great about Ford, again, there's open lines of communication. So they see where they're maybe not getting as many deals coming in through financing with Ford Credit, and they're like, okay, let's revisit what we're going to do the second half of the summer and continue some sort of an America program, because Ford builds more vehicles in America than anybody else, and let's continue on with something that's going to answer any concern that our clients are having up front at the moment. So again, most people finance. So with that being said, that monthly payment's important. Interest rates are top of mind. As listening to the news all morning this morning, everyone's talking about the Fed and the interest rates, and it's an important part for people, and it's a critical part of the deal. And I think Ford saw an opportunity to come back and recapture some business with Ford Credit. I think there was an opportunity cost that they dealt with by doing the employee program and not being able to subsidize rates and leases.
So it's interesting. You've seen a huge increase as a result of the new promotion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually not hearing carte blanche accolades across the board. I'm hearing from some Ford dealers that are having the reverse experience. They're saying, hey, that employee pricing was better. The 000 is a step backwards. What is the dealer missing that says this isn't as good and we're not seeing as much floor traffic? Where's the disconnect?
Well, it might be, depends on the market. So if you're in Detroit, which I have a lot of friends that are dealers in Michigan, that A-plan deal wasn't a great deal because most of the people there get it anyway. So again, it depends on the market. If you're in a big leasing market, the employee program probably wasn't a great program. If you're depending on like the Northeast part of this country that lease a lot of vehicles. So it depends. I think it's more of a regional, situation, so to speak. I know our DC market was up last month in Ford. Wasn't up as much as everybody wanted it to be, but I know it was up. We also have to take you also have to look at a calendar and look at the market share days and take into account the year-over-year differences with selling days versus, the month ending on a holiday like May did. I'm sorry, the month ending on a weekend with the holiday weekend like May did with Memorial Day. And then you go right into June 2nd for market share. So you're taking a couple days away from your June results that you would have normally had on a normal calendar month, if that makes sense. So
it does.
Yeah.
So do you think there's something you're doing in your promotion or your advertising, your engagement with your team that's creating this big increase for you in the 000, or do you think you're doing kind of what everybody else is doing?
I think for us, it's a combination. We really pushed hard with the employee program through the 4th of July weekend. We've invested a lot in a lot of marketing and our ad dollars on digital, and as well as internally, really, really, really reaching out to all those customers to make sure that they really knew it was ending and take advantage of it. We went out on social media, we did a lot of stuff, and really treated July 7th like it was the last day of the month. That was the whole point. And then from that point on, after July 7th, we knew Ford was going to come out with something strong, and we knew kind of the gist of what was going to probably happen, but we didn't know the actual program until we saw it the next day. And I think it just, in our market, in DC market, 0% resonates really, really well. We're not a huge lease market. So from a financing standpoint, you hear 0%, you're going to get a lot of your clients that would normally go to their credit union, maybe use a line of credit, from a home equity line or whatever. They're going to come in and take advantage of the program. And really the payments, really across the board, from leasing to financing, the payments with the 000 program, a lot of cases are much better.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So what models are performing best for you in this program with 000?
It's still early to tell, but we've got some, we've got some good programs going on with F-150. Super Duty trucks have got some good stuff going on. The 25 Explorer, it's right now it's kind of across the board. It's only been a week, but the traffic, to see the increase that we're having is extremely encouraging.
It's so interesting because in so many ways, Ford Motor Company has been able to capitalize on some market shifts unlike other manufacturer and OEMs. So you think of the 08 crisis, their ability to get loans in advance, put them in a super strong position. Ford right now, with so much of its production domestically, kind of, capitalizes on the tariffs and tariff threats. Can Ford continue to do this, lean into these incentives the way they are? Will they have to peel back at some point? What do you see the future of that here? And then we've got a question from our audience on the on recalls.
I think that I think Ford is poised. It's in a perfect position. I was listening to CNBC this morning. 56% of the cars sold in the month of June were built in America, in the entire country. 56% of the new cars, and you're seeing that slowly ticking up ever since the tariff announcements. So I think it was 54% the month before, if I'm correct. So Ford, again, builds more cars in America, sells more cars in America that are built in America than any other manufacturer. So we're poised. We're poised to do very, very well. It's a great time to be a Ford dealer. And I think Ford, again, talking about the not taking the the loan payments back in 2008 and always being poised in a good and being proactive. I think they're looking ahead to continue with this momentum, right? So I think Ford's in a great position, and maybe and even they've got ability to retool some stuff and bring some more manufacturing into America versus other parts of North America. And those guys are thinking about everything right now.
All right, so a counter question to that from our audience. DNC says, Alex, any concerns with all the announced Ford recalls this year? 89 year to date seems like it's a higher trend than in the past. What's causing this, and how do you look at it from a dealer perspective?
So there's definitely a fair amount of recalls out there, and I would say I actually look at it from a different perspective. I think Ford's being proactive and trying to get out in front of this stuff. They know. I mean, we've talked and met in our dealer the road shows that Jim Farley does with all of us, and we've sat down with a lot of the executives, and they all agree. We're all kind of on the same page here. There's no finger pointing or anything to that effect. And it's nice to hear them discuss, what's happening, and they're being proactive internally by trying to find these things and get them out as soon as possible. So I actually think it's a little bit. Sometimes you might have to take a step back before you take 2 steps forward, or I like to call it. Sometimes you got to slow down and speed up. So I think the way I look at it right now is Ford's doing what they can to get these things rectified and fixed. We've got inventory on our lots that we've got. We're sitting here waiting for solutions as well that we could sell today. So it's we're all kind of in the same boat, so to speak.
And actually, to DNC, you got to be fair to say there are multiple OEMs that are having recall challenges right now, just period. It's an industry challenge. And what the heck is going on with backup cameras? Like, it seems like in the news when we're reading it, like across the different OEMs, some of these high-tech solutions are really seeing a higher frequency of failure and challenge. And something as basic as a backup camera shouldn't be failing the way it is. So
no, and it's the same vendors, right? So the same vendor might be, or the same supplier, might be supplying Ford, that's supplying, GM, that's supplying Toyota. And you wouldn't think something like a backup camera, but you hear the stories, and we're in a situation where anyone that's a recent driver, I have 2 daughters that are new drivers in the last couple of years. They're used to all those safety mechanisms around them, backing up. And when I grew up, you kind of looked over your shoulder, you use your mirrors, and so the backup camera thing is mystifying at times, but there's a lot of people that do rely on it, and it's dangerous if it's not working right.
Yeah. So let's shift from Ford for just a minute, and then we'll come back. So we're getting some other comments about the Ford OEM, but you also have Mazda.
Sure.
Mazda's an interesting OEM. Our auto group, we don't have it. We'd probably love it at some point. You don't hear a lot about it right now, but they just seem to be quietly winning. Talk to us a little bit about the difference between Ford, Mazda. Do you have a favorite OEM? What would you like to see Mazda doing now?
Well, with Mazda, I think I ran a big Toyota store for a long time, and before I became a dealer on my own, and so I will tell you, Mazda and Toyota are very similar, and and I think we mentioned before on the show that Mazda Financial, which is the captive, took over from Chase many years ago,
Yes.
and Mazda Financial is actually Toyota Financial, so there's synergies there, and I think when you look at product development, when you look at what they're doing with their engine technologies, and they never really got into the hybrid and the EV race, so to speak, years ago, especially during the financial crisis. Mazda put all their money in refining fuel economy and building a better engine that would be better for the general public when it comes to miles per gallon and so forth. So they've been very, very deliberate and smart about investing in in R&D that's going to benefit the consumer, and might not be something you see on sheet metal, but when it comes down to the internals of the engine, and they've done a great job. And really, you look at Consumer Reports, Mazda is one of the best brands in the world. I mean, it really, from not even just, but safety crash test ratings and reliability, maintenance, and so forth.
So it's interesting. Rudy asks a great question. Rudy says, Mazda, one of those brands that last decade, but not so popular. Why? And I think what he might mean, I'm going to just take a guess here. They had such a cool ad campaign, zoom, zoom,
right?
They were all over the place. They've just kind of gone quiet. To your point, some affiliation with Toyota, they've just been kind of quietly reliable. Like, would you like to see them more aggressively out there in the marketing space? Or are you okay with kind of the current approach?
Well, the approach more now is more of it's an alternative to luxury kind of tactic, so to speak. So if you sit in a Mazda right now, I can't tell you how many times I've had friends, family, come over and look at a CX-5, top of the line signature edition, and they'll be like, this is like a Lexus, or this is as nice as the BMW, if not nicer. And we're seeing a lot on CX-90, for example, which is the new third row SUV that Mazda launched recently. We're getting X5s in on trade. We're getting X7s in on trade. We're getting Lexus RXs on trade. Vehicles we'd never seen before. So I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I think Mazda's done a really good job finding their niche and being able to target those customers that would be like perfect for the CX-90 as an example. And I think if you look at our ad strategies moving forward, we've got some, Mazda has a thing called retail go-to-market, and they're going to get very, very targeted starting in August, and expectations from the dealers is going to go up. So we spend a lot. Like I spend a lot of money in advertising. We're in the Washington, D.C. market. We want to be number one. You don't have a choice. You got to spend a lot of money. If you looked at our financial statement, people think we're crazy. But we want to grow. We want to, we're aggressive. We're going to make every deal. We get every trade in. We're going to, win that customer and get them into our family and never lose them. But not every Mazda franchise is like that. And for a long time, Mazda wasn't top of mind for a lot of dealers. I mean, when I first got it, we didn't have a separate showroom. It was we had kind of found a spot to put it in the side of the Ford showroom at one point, and we knew we were going to do something with it. I mean, I think it's focus, commitment, and making sure that you're on top of it.
It's just an interesting OEM, Alex, because it's one that is just quietly winning. It's just quietly, you don't hear a lot of problems with it. We'd love to have the Mazda CEO on this show at some point, just to kind of talk about their strategy. Other OEMs have kind of done that. I think of Honda. I think of some others that have just kind of been okay, just quietly growing. They don't have to throw something big out and then kind of disappoint on expectations. They just are kind of quietly. So you've got Ford, you've got Mazda, you've got Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Are you looking to grow as a dealer group?
Yes.
Who are you looking for? Where's your next acquisition? What's your strategy on growth?
So our strategy this year is a little different. We were a little more active last year. This year, it's there's been a lot more that's been presented to us versus us going out and looking for it. And so, not to sound like a cliche, but our most immediate growth is under our nose. We've got so much opportunity with Ford and our commercial truck business. Our commercial business last month was top 15 in the country, and that's going to keep growing. We'd kind of taken our eye off the ball during COVID and really focused on used cars, which was a great strategy at the time. But then you got to kind of come back after those years and get your allocations built back up, get your teams back on board, and refocus and re-energize the group. So, I mean, our biggest growth is right here, and we're not happy with where we are, and we know there's a lot more to be had, and that will give us opportunity to grow when it comes to the right opportunity coming along. We've looked at a lot of deals, and they just it's some cases it's like that customer that bought that car and paid over MSRP during COVID, and they think it's worth X amount. So you just got to be patient. When the right deal comes along, we're going to jump on the next one and keep growing. We're excited about our Lincoln franchise that we opened in downtown Bethesda a little less than 2 years ago, and that's been a huge boost to our business. And smart growth is what I like to call it. So
what do you think of as being some of the biggest threats to the business? We're mid-July right now. We're we're past the halfway mark to 2025. What kind of keeps you up at night, if anything, as you think about the rest of the year and the coming years?
I mean, the only thing is just some unforeseen event, right? I think that's the only thing. I'm not, knock on wood, we're not so obsessed about the tariffs, and worrying about all this stuff. I think we've got great leadership at Mazda, great leadership at Ford and Lincoln. They've obviously shown, they've taken, this time to really, separate themselves. Ford has, especially from the rest of the pack, as I would call it, in the competition. So, but, you think about an unforeseen event, you worry about, inflation, creeping back up again, interest rates going up. Like those are some of the things that I think about, not just from a retail standpoint of selling cars, but also from an internal standpoint of cost controls and being profitable, right? So,
Well, Alex Perdikis, CEO of Koons Motor, we're super pumped to have you on the show today. Thanks for sharing your perspective on all things Ford, the new promotion, Mazda. Thanks for allowing us to kind of walk around and talk about that a little bit. And when you do make that next buy sell, whether it's Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, whatever it is, we've got to get you on the buy sell tracker. You got to become part of the CDG unveil. We want you to come unveil it here, just like Aaron did the Ferrari acquisition, Lake Forest, and so many other dealers have. We'd love to have you back on the show. Alex, thanks for being here.
I will commit that to you for sure.
Awesome. Love it. You'll hear it first. So thank you, Alex.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Alex.
Dude, Yuli, we did it. I created a temporary studio here. You can see sweat dripping down everywhere. I've got this crazy background. They've been cleaning the floors behind and around me. I think kids have been running and jumping up and down. And we did the show. This is proof that automotive can do anything. So going back to Chance's comment earlier, did you see Superman? Yes, no?
No, I did not see Superman. Okay. Not yet.
So you and I need to go see Superman. Then we can give Chance his feedback, right? So
let's go.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Well, a big thanks to everybody that was here on today's show with us. Thank you for watching the Daily Deal Live, where we break down the biggest moves in the car business as they happen. Thanks to you too, Dancy. Thanks, guys. Always appreciate you fielding my questions. Appreciate you being in here. Don't forget, we're here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It doesn't matter what happens. The power can go out. We can lose the internet. Anything can happen. We'll be here. So if this is your world, hit like, subscribe, turn on those notifications. And Yuli, and to our CDG audience, Daily Dealer Live, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We'll see you next episode. Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.